The ongoing hemorrhage of Nigerian professionals to other climes in search of a better life and improved working conditions seems to be hitting the country's investment banking space and financial advisory industries on a whole new level. A couple of days ago, a business-oriented newspaper reported the impending exit of yet another respected brand in that sector. For an economy in clear distress and needing emergency injection of fund, this seems as fatal a blow as can be. To have a conversation around this, we're now being joined by Lewu, a lawyer, investment banker, and group managing director of Capital Field Investment Group, an organization where much of the operations are involved, the deployment of the law to help clients navigate the many risks in an industry replete with uncertainty. This conversation will focus on the current state of investment banking in Nigeria, where the challenges lie, and what steps must be taken to improve customer confidence, recapitalization of banks, and the economic policy direction of the government. Good morning, Mr. Lewu. Good to have you join us in the studio today.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
All right.
Good to have you.
Good to have you. Thank you very much. I mean, this is the time to talk about banks and investment. Banks, because of the recapitalization hints that the governor of the CBN gave when he had that major important address with the bankers, committee the other day. Is this something that the financial industry, particularly the banking sector, are expecting? And what do you think they will be doing at this point to key into what the CBN governor is trying to do? That is important because of ordinary people who have their money in banks, who feel that money safe. Will the banks come back, to be looking for money, or will they lose their licenses, or they will have to merge or be acquired by other banks?
Thank you. I think to begin with, it's important to put the perspective clearly as to what investment banking is, as opposed to commercial banking. Yeah. So investment banking essentially involves raising funds or money for entities, corporate entities. It includes things like mergers and acquisition, and raising advisory services to institutions, raising funds for states and commercial enterprises. And essentially it's strategies around capital markets and raising funds. Really, there are four key things about investment banking. You talk about the capital market, like I said, advisory services, trading and brokerage, as well as asset management. And also, the major parties here will be the investment bankers, institutional investors, and of course, those entities for which those funds are being raised.
Yeah.
For commercial banks, this will require taking deposits, granting loans, and your everyday banking activities. So really, those are what we're talking about. Now, back to your point and the question. No doubt, the market's been expecting this. Any discerning operator would know that with the twin issue of the depreciation of the currency,
that's right,
and inflation, the 25 billion you had a couple of years, almost 20 years ago, it's nothing today. So really, there is need for that. And now, what this will do really for the market is an opportunity for banks to, number one, shore up their capital base and their financial position, assure their customers, like you said, and to prove to them that they can be resilient in the face of economic challenges that we're faced with today. With all of that, banks can also show that with the growing economic like we have in this country and the required debts, which we really don't have, you need enough and sufficient capital to be able to play in the market. If you want to play in the global space, if you convert 25 billion naira today to dollars, you and I can guess where we're talking about. So we are not anywhere close to where we should be. And really to play and for a developing economy like ours, so much needs to go to infrastructure. And we talk a lot about money to put all that in place. And so really, it's not a bad thing, and I think the market has been expecting it. And so, like I said, what people should be doing now, and what I think people are beginning to talk, and then this is where we need experts. You talked at the beginning about the death or paucity of professionals.
Yes.
This is when people are going to witness what should be in place to have that done.
All right then, but when we speak about this reported exit
That's
of
right.
professionals already from Nigeria's investment banking and financial advisory sectors, it is a cause for concern. But I'm curious to know, as you know, the GMD of Capital Field Investment Group, what strategies has your organization adopted to see how to maybe retain and attract top talents in the face of increasing immigration of professionals from the country? And would you be able to maybe provide insights into the extent of this hemorrhaging that we're seeing and its impact to the industry's talent pool?
Thank you. I'll start with that extent. So really, there's something we now call jackpot syndrome, isn't it? Yeah. So in the first instance, my assessment would be that we have inadequate number of professionals. The last time we witnessed the real influx, so to say, then would be 2006, 2005, when we had the last banking consolidation in Nigeria. And during that period until a few years ago, we've had experienced and well-trained professionals and competitive ones in the industry, particularly in the investment banking space. But until recently, there has been, like I said, huge migration of Nigerians, of course, because of the hard economic conditions in the country. Nigerians play in the global space, and we have Nigerians everywhere. You can hardly go to any part of the world, particularly in the academics, where you won't find Nigerians. Fintech, which is what we're talking about, we have Nigerians play in that space. And so when they see what their peers are earning and what they're earning now locally, the first temptation is for you to just leave the shores of the country to want to earn what others are earning. Having said that, for us as an institution in Capital Field, our mantra would be to attract and retrain people. Money is very important, but we believe it's beyond that. Respect is very key.
Yeah.
When you have cause to work in an organization, for us, we always say, our name is on your CV. Now, when you leave for any reason, you will remember that you've been part of this family. And we never let go of our people, in the sense that even if for any reason you have to leave them, we're still part and parcel of us. We do things together. We still continue to do businesses with those that probably have moved on to set up their businesses. And so really, they never really leave. They may physically leave, but somewhat they're still with us in very many ways. We've had cause to actually encourage some of our employees to go out and take opportunities even outside of the institution. We see them as our ambassadors.
Okay.
And so, or for instance, there may be new things in the economy which we're not prepared to take on at the moment. We can encourage some of our people to go in there and even help them, support them to achieve that. So for them to see it as part of their family. And then we're actually thinking of something like we say, Capital Field collegiates, so to say, because we have quite a few of our people outside of the country, some studying, some trying to take up vocations we think can help grow that family that we're having together.
Then, fantastic.
So you've spoken a lot. You've spoken about the currency depreciation, and you know that's partly why people are leaving the country is because they don't. They're not earning as much as their peers outside.
That's right.
But do you think this currency depreciation, do you think it's also affecting investment into the country? Because, you know, numbers that we're seeing recently of investment coming into like the technology sector, fintech, edutech, health tech, it seems that this year's numbers are the lowest that we've seen in a while in terms of even in Africa as a whole.
That's
so
right.
do you think this Forex pressure is also affecting the investment banking sector as a whole?
Thank you. So there are two sides to that coin, if you ask me. For an investor, the return on investment is very key. But besides that, you must be able to repatriate your investments and the dividends and whatever gains you have in there. Nigeria, as an emerging economy, it's one that you will see that investors love because the return on investment is a lot more than where you can find, particularly in developed economies. So for them, it's an attraction. Okay. Now, the pressure been the inability of people to move their funds out of the country.
Yeah.
We experienced that, and I suspect that's what it is. I mean, I can see that's what this government is trying to address. You will recall that a couple of weeks ago, they paid part of the obligations due to those they had promised to give funds to, and that actually helped the market. So in the past, during the last regime, many funds were stuck. Investors couldn't take their money out, and then in the twilight of that administration, I think the government began to default. CBN began to default with the obligations until this government came, and the current management of CBN began to sort them out. So that has helped. So one way, like I said, two sides. For those that want good return on investment, is an attraction. But where the structure will not allow for you to be able to take out your funds, then it becomes discouraging for people.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Lewu, before we let you go, let me quickly put this in. What will be your assessment from an investment banker's point of view? It's a twofold thing. What will be your assessment of the first 6 months of this new administration in terms of investment and banking? And then take a peep into the budget, the proposed budget that has been submitted to the National Assembly. Is it that, looking at what you've seen so far, what sort of outlook will you have in terms of investment banking for 2024? 18 point something trillion is projected as revenue. That's 66% more than the projection for this year.
That's right.
If they're able to achieve that, that will probably be the biggest ever in terms of revenue for government. Does that say anything to an average Nigerian, or to an investment banker like you, or to potential small little potential investors as far as 2024 is concerned?
Thank you. Okay, so I'll start by saying investment banking actually has experienced exponential growth in Nigeria in the last 15 to 20 years, as I said earlier. And we've seen the industry originating and executing landmark transactions for the manufacturing and service sectors. And this is quite remarkable if you ask me. We see corporates benefiting from those transactions, your MTN, flour mills, BUA, and the rest of them. State government, Lagos State and other states have benefited from investment banking. But the same set of problems that the economy faced in the past, say, 8-10 years, also have been the same problems being faced by investment banking, that segment of the industry. For the reasons we discussed, challenges such that uncertainty in the regulatory environment, the lack of collaboration that you require between the stakeholders and the regulators, challenges like we talked about, paucity of trained hands, experienced people, and the lack of debts that we require, infrastructural constraints, economic uncertainty. Those are issues being faced recently. Now, with the advent and the incoming administration beginning to tell us in the last 6 months what they want to do, number one, the first announcement made by the president about subsidy removal, of course, shook the system. No doubt, some would tell you he's bold to challenge the system and the status quo, and to tell us the reforms are very necessary. It is a very, I'm trying to describe the people that we are in Nigeria. There's hardly anything you do and you will get both sides saying this or that. Personally, I think we're all in agreement that subsidy isn't helping us the way it should be, the way it was run. I know clearly that everywhere in the world, governments will have to subsidize something.
Absolutely.
Rich countries do that as well. And then the complaint has been, what are they doing about that? The application and the use of that. You don't subsidize consumption. You probably just want to subsidize production.
That's right.
Or make things such that people will know and have value for whatever it is, and then they can enjoy what that subsidy is about. Having said that, I think one thing I have seen about this government is they are listening,
Okay.
In different ways they've said it. If we make mistake, I remember a summit that they had, and the president said clearly that he wasn't afraid to make mistakes or something like that.
Right.
Okay, and for me as a leader, once that is clear, everyone around you would know that, look, if you take a decision and if you're wrong, if you're not too afraid to admit and then change.
Walk back and correct it.
Exactly. For me, that's it. That's what governance is about. The people know that if you make that, no one is infallible. And then the people around the government or the seat of government, if they advise the government wrongly, they know when the people push back and then they realize that the government will listen and then walk back to it, like you said.
Right.
Then we know that then there's a listening government. I had seen that a few times they took certain decisions and people said they didn't like that, and then they corrected that. Back to that point, I would imagine that with the reforms they're talking about, with what the CBN governor has also hinted about what we have, and the market should be prepared for this. Once you can drive up investors' confidence, people will begin to see what it is. Nigerians just have to learn to prepare to walk it the way it should be. And then when the people in government also can show and prove to us that they are also in need with us and to sacrifice like they ask us to sacrifice, then maybe the confidence level will begin to come back and people will begin to
We're
trust
literally talking about that before you came in. The importance of going through temporary pains for permanent gains in the future. Thank you so much for being on here, Mr. Ralph Lewu, investment banker and GMD of the Capital Field Investment Group. We appreciate your time and analysis.
Thank you so much.